Welcome to Stories TH, where we bring you heartwarming and inspiring stories that will touch your soul. If you've ever faced adversity or felt like giving up, this story is for you. Alice's journey is a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her children. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Stories TH for more emotional tales that will leave you inspired. Part 1. Introducing Alice Evans and the setting. Introducing Alice Evans and her family. Alice Evans is a woman of unwavering strength and resilience. She lives in Maplewood, a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside, where conformity is revered and differences are met with suspicion. Maplewood, with its quiet streets and quaint houses, holds on to traditions that leave little room for those who stand out. It is in this town that Alice and her 5 children are forced to carve out their existence, despite the many challenges they face. Alice's life has never been easy. Her husband, Robert, died unexpectedly in a tragic workplace accident, leaving Alice alone to shoulder the responsibility of raising their children. Alice's 5 children, each born with a congenital hearing impairment, are seen as different by the townspeople. The absence of their ability to speak or hear only adds to their alienation, marking them as an anomaly in a town that thrives on the ordinary. Despite this, Alice remains a pillar of strength. She continues to love and care for her children, doing everything in her power to provide for them in the face of adversity. Her love for them is undeniable, and she is determined to give them the life they deserve. However, Alice's journey is not without its struggles. The grief from losing her husband is compounded by the burden of caring for 5 children who require special attention. Yet, despite the weight of this responsibility, Alice never falters in her dedication to her family. As a mother, her resilience is unmatched, but the burden she carries is immense. The world around her, particularly in Maplewood, makes life even harder. The town is a place where people are quick to judge those who are different, and Alice and her children find themselves on the receiving end of that judgment. In this first section, the story sets the stage for Alice's character development. Her strength and determination are immediately apparent, but the story also begins to explore the prejudices and challenges she faces within her community. Her family, already disadvantaged by their circumstances, is made to feel even more isolated by the stigma attached to their condition. From the beginning, it's clear that Alice will have to confront not only personal grief, but also societal biases. These early chapters focus on laying the foundation for her story, a woman who must find a way to navigate both the pain of loss and the harsh judgments of those around her. Maplewood and its social biases. Maplewood is not just a setting. It is a character in itself. The town is steeped in tradition, with strict rules and social norms that dictate the lives of its residents. There is little room for deviation, and anyone who does not fit the mold is quickly marginalized. In a community where appearances matter and differences are viewed as threats, Alice's family becomes an easy target for alienation. Her children's hearing impairments, combined with their inability to communicate in ways that are easily understood by others, make them objects of suspicion and pity. For Alice and her children, Maplewood's community is unforgiving. Whispers follow them wherever they go, and they are often met with cold stares from those around them. The children's condition is viewed as a curse, something that the townspeople believe is the result of bad karma or divine punishment. As a result, Alice's family is shunned by the very people who are supposed to be their neighbors and friends. The local children refuse to play with Alice's children, and even the shopkeepers treat Alice with disdain, refusing to engage with her or offer her the basic services they extend to others. The social fabric of Maplewood is so tightly woven that any perceived imperfection is seen as a flaw to be avoided rather than embraced. This atmosphere of exclusion is suffocating. As Alice goes about her daily life, she is constantly reminded that she and her children are not welcome in the town. The town's judgment feels like an unspoken weight pressing down on them. The streets that should have felt like home now feel alien, as if the very air they breathe is filled with suspicion. Even simple tasks like buying groceries or visiting the local park are fraught with discomfort. Alice's family is never far from the harsh whispers of disapproval, and these whispers grow louder as time passes. Maplewood's prejudice towards Alice's family goes beyond mere words. The community's rejection manifests in tangible ways. Landlords refuse to rent to Alice. Potential employers turn her away, and even the priest at the local church distances himself from her family. These actions, although subtle at first, slowly begin to chip away at Alice's resolve. She starts to wonder if her family will ever find acceptance, or if they are doomed to live in the shadows of society's judgment forever. The narrative uses the town's unrelenting biases to illustrate just how deeply embedded prejudices can be in a small community. Maplewood is not just a backdrop. It is a reflection of the societal forces that Alice must overcome. The town's disdain for Alice and her children is rooted in the fear of the unknown. The people of Maplewood view Alice's family not as individuals with unique needs, but as a threat to the social order they hold dear. This social exclusion is not only an emotional burden for Alice, but also a physical one, as she must navigate a world that seems designed to reject her and her children. This setting serves as the crucible in which Alice's character will be tested. In the face of constant rejection, Alice's resilience will be pushed to its limits. But Maplewood, with its small-town dynamics, also offers a sense of intimacy that will allow Alice to demonstrate the full extent of her inner strength. Her family's struggle against societal norms is not just a personal battle, but one that pits them against a collective force that will require courage, patience, and ultimately, forgiveness to overcome. In this first part of the story, we explore the complexities of Alice's situation and the town of Maplewood. By introducing both the character of Alice and the setting of Maplewood, we create a stark contrast between Alice's inner strength and the harsh social environment in which she lives. The challenges she faces from both personal loss and societal rejection lay the groundwork for her character development and provide a sense of urgency for her journey of survival and resilience. The societal bias against Alice and her children will act as a primary antagonist throughout the story. As the narrative unfolds, the contrast between Alice's unwavering love for her children and the cruelty of the community will drive the plot forward, highlighting the broader themes of love, perseverance, and social justice. These themes are not only relevant to Alice's personal journey, but also serve as a broader commentary on how society treats those who are perceived as other. This introduction sets the tone for a powerful and emotional journey that explores the depths of human strength, the effects of societal prejudice, and the power of love and family to overcome even the greatest of challenges. Part 2. The struggles after the death of Alice's husband. The accident of Alice's husband and the change in her life. The tragic death of Alice's husband, Robert Evans, in a work-related accident marks the turning point in their lives. Robert had always been the rock of their family. His presence and support were the foundation upon which Alice and her children relied. His sudden death, caused by an accident at the local factory where he worked as a welder, left Alice shattered and grappling with a new reality. No longer could she rely on Robert's strength to hold their family together. Now, she had to summon all of her own to keep things from falling apart. The loss of Robert wasn't just emotional, it was financial. Robert had been the primary breadwinner, and with his death, Alice found herself not only grieving, but facing the harsh reality of providing for 5 children without a steady income. The bills piled up, and the children's needs grew more urgent with every passing day. The world Alice had known, one in which she shared responsibility with her husband, was gone, and now it was up to her to pick up the pieces. Despite the overwhelming sorrow and despair, Alice knew she had no choice but to press forward. The weight of the responsibility fell heavily on her shoulders, and she had no option but to find a way to survive. She had to figure out how to keep a roof over their heads, food on the table, and make sure her children felt loved and cared for, despite the sudden upheaval. Alice's resilience, which had always been a quiet strength, was now put to the test in a way that she never anticipated. At first, Alice felt completely unprepared for the enormity of what lay ahead. The first few months after Robert's death were filled with a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and visits to social services. She was forced to navigate the labyrinth of bureaucracy while dealing with the emotional and financial fallout of losing her partner. The children, especially the younger ones, struggled to understand why their father was no longer there. Alice had to play both mother and father, trying to fill the void left by Robert's absence while also grieving her own loss. But it wasn't just the practical matters of survival that Alice had to confront. The emotional toll of Robert's death left a permanent scar, one that Alice knew would never completely fade. However, she began to realize that her sorrow could not define her. In those darkest moments, she made a vow to herself and to her children. She would keep going. For them, she had to keep fighting, no matter the odds. This determination marked the beginning of Alice's journey from grief to strength. And as time passed, she began to tap into a new level of resilience she hadn't known existed within her. This moment is a significant turning point in the narrative. It's where Alice's internal transformation begins. It's also where her determination starts to shift from simple survival to a deeper commitment to rebuilding her life, even when the odds seem stacked against her. Her ability to get back up after such a devastating blow becomes a key element in the story, showcasing her unwavering resolve to provide for and protect her children. The growing stigma and the feeling of being abandoned. In the aftermath of Robert's death, the stigma surrounding Alice and her children grew exponentially. Despite her best efforts to move forward, Alice found that the community of Maplewood, which had already been unwelcoming to her family, grew colder and more judgmental. The loss of Robert, who had been a well-respected member of the town, left Alice and her children without the social standing they once had. They were no longer seen as just a grieving widow and her children. They were marked as outsiders, forever tainted by their differences and their perceived misfortune. Maplewood had always been a town steeped in tradition and conformity, and the tragedy that befell Alice only served to reinforce the town's preconceived notions about her family. The townspeople began whispering that her family's misfortunes were the result of a curse. Alice's children, who had always been seen as different because of their hearing impairments, were now blamed for bringing misfortune to their mother and the community. The whispers, once quiet, grew louder as Alice tried to go about her daily life. The once friendly faces of neighbors became distant and judgmental. At the local store, Alice noticed that shopkeepers who had once greeted her with a smile now avoided her. They would rush to assist other customers while pretending not to see her. When Alice would walk through the market, she felt the weight of people's eyes on her, their judgment heavy and unspoken. Her children, too, felt the sting of this rejection. The other children no longer wanted to play with Alice's kids. In their eyes, they were not just different, they were an embodiment of misfortune. The harshness of these social interactions was something that Alice couldn't protect her children from, and it began to wear on her. This growing stigma didn't just affect Alice socially. It also took a toll on her mental health. The feeling of being isolated from the rest of the town began to eat away at her. She felt as if she was fighting a battle on two fronts, one for her children's future and one against the insidious, pervasive judgment of her neighbors. It was as though every day she woke up and entered a world that was waiting for her to fail. The emotional toll of this was immense. Alice began to feel like a prisoner in a town that had once felt like home. Despite her deep sense of isolation, Alice tried to push through. She refused to let the town's judgment define her or her children, but the emotional burden weighed heavily on her. She watched as the walls of prejudice and exclusion grew higher, and she realized that no matter how hard she worked or how much love she showed her children, it seemed like the town would never accept them. But even in her lowest moments, Alice's strength was apparent. The loneliness she felt was crushing, but it didn't break her. Instead, it steeled her resolve. She began to lean on her children more, drawing strength from their unwavering belief in her. They didn't care about the judgments of others. They saw Alice as their protector, their mother, and in their eyes, she was all they needed. This section of the story explores not just the external struggle Alice faces from her community, but also the internal conflict she battles. The rejection from Maplewood forces Alice to confront her own feelings of worth and identity. In a way, it highlights the painful truth that society often rejects what it doesn't understand or what doesn't fit into its rigid mold. For Alice, the pain of rejection becomes a constant companion, one that she must learn to cope with as she navigates the challenges of raising her children alone. The emotional weight of this section underscores the theme of social injustice in the story. Alice's experience is a powerful commentary on how communities can turn their backs on those who are different. It also emphasizes the importance of resilience in the face of societal rejection, and how one can find the strength to continue moving forward despite the overwhelming odds. This chapter is pivotal in shaping Alice's character, as it lays bare the deep emotional and social scars she must overcome in order to ultimately triumph over adversity. In this part of the story, the harsh reality of Alice's new life is fully revealed. The death of her husband, Robert, has not only left a profound emotional void, but also forced Alice to confront the deep-rooted biases of her community. The growing stigma and isolation Alice faces as a widow with children who are perceived as different act as powerful external forces that drive the conflict in the story. These forces are made even more oppressive by the small-town setting, where everyone knows each other's business and any deviation from the norm is scrutinized and judged. Alice's emotional turmoil in this section is critical to understanding her character. Her resilience in the face of these societal pressures is what will drive her journey forward. She is forced to navigate not only the practical aspects of life as a single mother, but also the emotional strain of feeling unwanted and rejected by the very community she lives in. The social prejudice Alice experiences serves as both a personal challenge and a societal commentary, illustrating how deeply ingrained biases can affect individuals and families. This section lays the groundwork for Alice's eventual triumph by showing how the rejection she faces only strengthens her resolve to provide a better life for her children. Part 3. The Struggle to Reclaim Life. Searching for Work and the Closed Doors. Alice's journey to rebuild her life after the death of her husband, Robert, is not an easy one. With 5 children to care for, her immediate priority is to find work. However, the odds seem stacked against her at every turn. Every time Alice finds a potential opportunity, she is met with rejection. The town of Maplewood, with its tightly knit community and long-held prejudices, makes it exceedingly difficult for someone like Alice, someone who doesn't fit the conventional mold, to find a place for herself. Alice begins her search for work by visiting the local shops, restaurants, and even reaching out to families in the area who might need help with domestic tasks. Her hopes are high. She believes that if she works hard enough, she can provide for her children and start rebuilding a life for them. But time and time again, she is turned away. The reasons given are varied, but they always boil down to the same thing. Her family is different. Alice's children, who are all deaf, have become the subject of gossip and suspicion, and their mother, the widow of a man who had once been a part of the local community, is now viewed with disdain. The shopkeepers in Maplewood, who once greeted Alice with familiarity, now treat her with cold indifference. The employers she approaches, despite the desperation in her eyes, find excuses not to hire her. The whispers behind her back are audible now, and the rejection she faces is painfully public. She's got 5 children who can't even speak. How could she possibly be reliable? One local grocer mutters under his breath. Her family brings bad luck, another person remarks. These judgments, though unspoken in direct terms, hang heavily over Alice's attempts to find employment. Each rejection chips away at her confidence. Alice knows that her family's circumstances are not her fault, yet she can't help but internalize the community's judgment. The continuous string of closed doors forces her to reckon with her own vulnerability. She has no choice but to push through, though the emotional toll of each rejection is immense. She realizes that, in a small town like Maplewood, breaking free from the limitations placed on her family feels nearly impossible. This section is crucial in portraying Alice's inner conflict. While the world around her rejects her for something she cannot change, Alice grapples with feelings of failure. The deeper frustration lies in her inability to protect her children from the sting of rejection. Every time she is turned away, she feels like she is failing not just herself, but her children, who depend on her for everything. The feeling of being unable to break free from the social constraints of Maplewood is oppressive, and it's here that we begin to see how the weight of societal prejudice can affect the psyche of an individual trying to overcome adversity. Alice's struggle to find work and the repeated closed doors highlight a critical aspect of the story: social exclusion. Her attempts to provide for her children are constantly thwarted by the biases of others, which leaves her feeling trapped in an inescapable cycle of rejection. This sense of entrapment is a major barrier to her growth and development, and it serves as a constant reminder of the systemic obstacles that marginalized individuals must overcome in society. Letting go of pride to survive. With each rejection, Alice's sense of dignity takes a hit. As the days turn into weeks and weeks into months, Alice is faced with the harsh reality that she must find a way to survive, even if it means compromising her pride. The jobs that she once considered beneath her, cleaning houses, washing dishes, or scrubbing floors, are now her only option. She finds herself accepting work that she once would have never dreamed of doing, simply to ensure that her children have food to eat and a roof over their heads. At first, Alice struggles with this new reality. She had always prided herself on being self-sufficient and independent, never wanting to rely on anyone. But now, she has no choice but to humble herself. She takes on jobs that are physically demanding, emotionally exhausting, and, most of all, degrading in the eyes of the society that looks down on her. Cleaning the houses of families who once shunned her, preparing meals for the wealthy residents of Maplewood, and washing laundry for the town's elite, these tasks, once seen as menial, have become her daily life. The work is grueling. Long hours spent bending over washing tubs, scrubbing floors, and cooking meals for families that view her as less than them take a physical toll on Alice's body. But it's not just the physical exhaustion that wears on her, it's the emotional strain of having to submit to the whims of others. Alice is forced to accept that, in the eyes of society, she and her family are nothing more than a burden. But her love for her children keeps her going. She knows that the work she does, no matter how demeaning it may feel, is a means to an end. It is the only way to provide for her children in a world that has turned its back on them. As Alice continues to take on these jobs, she begins to reflect on the role of pride in her life. She had always seen herself as a woman who was self-sufficient and capable, someone who could hold her head high in any situation. But now that pride has been replaced by a burning need to survive. In this struggle, Alice begins to understand that survival sometimes means letting go of the things that once defined her. Her sense of pride, while valuable, must now take a back seat to the more immediate need to ensure her children's future. This is a turning point in Alice's journey. Her willingness to sacrifice her pride for the sake of her family demonstrates her profound love and dedication to them. It's a painful yet necessary evolution for Alice as she begins to embrace the role of caregiver in ways she had never imagined. Her sense of self-worth is no longer tied to the societal expectations of Maplewood, but is instead rooted in her ability to persevere and care for her children. Through this sacrifice, Alice's character becomes even more admirable. She may be working in jobs that others look down on, but she refuses to let the work define her. She understands that her value is not determined by her job, but by the love and care she gives to her children. The hardship of her work becomes a symbol of her strength, as she willingly endures the hardships of low-wage labor to protect her children and ensure they have a future. This section of the story not only showcases Alice's growth as a person, but also reflects a universal truth. Survival often requires sacrifices, and the ability to let go of one's pride is sometimes necessary to achieve the greater goal of self-preservation and love. Alice's journey is a testament to the power of a mother's love and the strength that can be found in the most challenging circumstances. In Part 3, we see Alice's resilience truly tested. The challenges she faces in her search for work, as well as the internal conflict she grapples with regarding her pride, highlight the harsh realities of life for those who are marginalized. This section serves to deepen Alice's character, showing her not only as a loving mother, but also as a woman who is willing to do whatever it takes to provide for her family. The emotional weight of this section is important because it reflects the broader themes of sacrifice, dignity, and perseverance. Alice's struggle is not just one of financial hardship, it is also a struggle against the prejudices of her society. As she lets go of her pride and embraces the menial jobs available to her, she begins to understand that survival is not about holding on to one's former identity, but about finding strength in the face of adversity. This chapter emphasizes the human capacity to adapt and grow in the face of extreme challenges. It also serves as a reminder of how societal structures and biases can create insurmountable obstacles for those who are already disadvantaged. However, Alice's story is one of hope, illustrating that even in the face of rejection and hardship, a mother's love and determination can overcome the harshest of circumstances. Part 4. The Suffering and Death of Emma. The feeling of despair and exhaustion. Alice Evans had always been a woman of extraordinary strength. Her ability to carry the weight of her family's troubles, to shoulder the burden of being both mother and father to her 5 children, had been tested again and again. However, as the days wore on, the exhaustion, both physical and emotional, began to take its toll on her. The demands of daily life were never-ending. Finding enough money to pay for food, keeping the house in some semblance of order, and above all, making sure her children felt safe and loved despite the world's harsh treatment. The responsibilities seemed to multiply as each day passed, and Alice found herself increasingly overwhelmed. Though Alice's children could not speak, they could feel the tension in the air. They could sense their mother's fatigue, the weight of her worry pressing down on them. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt like a silent fortress where Alice's unspoken fears and exhaustion lingered in the corners. The children, particularly her older ones, could see the toll it was taking on her. They tried to help in their own ways, doing small chores, looking after the younger siblings, but the strain was too great. Alice had always been the pillar holding the family together, but now even her own strength was beginning to crack under the pressure. Physically, Alice was exhausted. Her body ached from the long hours of manual labor, cleaning, cooking, and washing clothes for others. But it wasn't just the physical exhaustion that wore her down, it was the mental and emotional burden of trying to meet her children's needs while also battling a society that constantly reminded her that her family was different. The judgment, the isolation, the constant struggle to make ends meet, everything was pushing Alice to the brink. She had always told herself that she could handle anything, but now, more than ever, she was beginning to question how much longer she could keep going. Despite these overwhelming feelings, Alice didn't give up. She couldn't. Her children relied on her too much. Even though she felt like she was sinking under the weight of it all, she knew she had to keep moving forward for their sake. But there were moments when her body would betray her, when the weariness would overwhelm her, and she would allow herself the rare moment of collapse, only to quickly pull herself together again. This chapter is a true test of Alice's mental and physical resilience, one that ultimately strengthens her resolve, but at a tremendous cost to her well-being. The emotional toll of caring for her children, coupled with the relentless exhaustion, gradually led Alice into a state of despair. There were nights when she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if there was any light at the end of the tunnel. The endless cycle of trying to survive each day without any real hope for relief made it difficult for Alice to hold on to her optimism. In these moments, she was forced to confront the question of whether she was really capable of providing her children with a better future, or if the weight of her responsibilities would crush her before she could reach that goal. The death of Emma and the unbearable pain. Emma, Alice's youngest child, had always been the light of her life. Her infectious laughter and playful nature brought joy to the household, even during the most difficult times. But Emma's health had always been fragile. Despite Alice's best efforts to keep her children healthy and safe, Emma had been plagued by a number of health issues, many of which stemmed from the complications of being born deaf. The family had done everything they could to seek medical help, but in a small town like Maplewood, resources were limited, and the medical professionals were not equipped to deal with the specialized care Emma needed. One cold winter's night, Emma's health took a turn for the worse. Alice had already been dealing with an intense workload, juggling multiple jobs and trying to keep the household running. But when Emma fell seriously ill, Alice's world came crashing down. She rushed Emma to the local doctor, desperate for any solution. But despite their best efforts, Emma's condition worsened quickly. The doctor explained that Emma's body was simply too weak to fight the illness, and there was nothing more they could do. The news hit Alice like a thunderclap. Her heart broke as she realized that the little girl who had been the bright spark in her life was slipping away from her. In the days leading up to Emma's death, Alice stayed by her daughter's side, holding her hand and whispering words of love and comfort. The once vibrant little girl, who had filled the house with her laughter, was now fading away, and there was nothing Alice could do to stop it. Every breath Emma took felt like a weight on Alice's heart, and with each passing hour, the grief grew heavier. Alice tried to remain strong, tried to reassure her other children, but deep down, she felt the ground beneath her slipping away. How could she face another loss after everything she had already endured? When Emma finally passed away, the pain was unbearable. It was a wound so deep that Alice felt as if a part of her had been torn away. As a mother, she had always been the protector, the one who kept her children safe, the one who shielded them from the harshness of the world. But in this moment, she felt utterly helpless. She had failed to protect Emma from the illness that took her life. The guilt was suffocating. Alice couldn't help but wonder if there was something she could have done differently, if there was something she had missed. The loss of Emma shattered the family. Her siblings, especially her older brothers and sisters, were heartbroken. They had grown so close as a family, and now, with Emma's absence, the house felt empty and silent. The joy that Emma brought into their lives was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sadness that seemed to cling to every corner of the house. The children, in their own way, tried to cope with the loss, but they too were lost in their grief. Emma had been the glue that held them all together, and without her, everything felt incomplete. For Alice, Emma's death was more than just the loss of a child, it was the loss of her hope. Emma had been the bright light in Alice's otherwise dark world, and now that light had been extinguished. It was as though the very essence of Alice's ability to keep going had been taken from her. The pain of losing her daughter was compounded by the grief of knowing that she had already endured so much and yet still had to keep fighting. How could she keep going after this? This chapter of the story delves into the depth of Alice's sorrow, highlighting the excruciating pain of a mother losing her child. It paints a stark picture of the emotional devastation that Alice experiences, and the weight of this loss is felt not only by Alice, but also by the entire family. Emma's death is a turning point, one that forces Alice to confront her deepest fears and darkest emotions. The pain of losing her daughter is a crushing blow, but it also serves as a catalyst for Alice's transformation, one that will eventually lead her to find new strength in the face of unimaginable loss. Part 4 is crucial in the development of Alice's character and the emotional depth of the story. The profound grief she experiences after Emma's death serves as a pivotal moment in the narrative, shaping her into an even more resilient and complex character. This section is also significant in highlighting the unbearable toll that loss takes on an individual, especially a mother who has already faced so much hardship. Emma's death not only deepens Alice's pain, but also forces her to confront her own vulnerability and sense of self-worth. It amplifies the themes of sacrifice, survival, and the emotional toll of perseverance. While Alice had previously endured physical and emotional exhaustion, the death of her youngest child marks the culmination of her suffering and challenges her in ways she never thought possible. This chapter is a powerful exploration of loss, resilience, and the strength required to carry on after tragedy. Alice's journey is one of continuous growth and transformation, and while Emma's death represents a crushing blow, it also marks the beginning of a new phase in Alice's life, one that will force her to find hope and strength in the most difficult of circumstances. Part 5. The Rejection and Social Injustice. The community's rejection and discriminatory actions. No matter how hard Alice tries to integrate into the community of Maplewood, the rejection never stops. She and her children are constantly ostracized and viewed as a burden, a family cursed by misfortune. The whispers behind Alice's back and the cold stares her family receives are a daily reminder of their position in the eyes of the townspeople. Alice had always hoped that with time, people would begin to see beyond her family's perceived differences, her children's disabilities, her widowhood, and the ongoing struggle to make ends meet. But despite her best efforts, the community's perception of her family as cursed only deepens. Alice's attempts to reach out, to be a part of something larger than herself, are met with resistance. When she tries to attend local events or participate in community activities, she is often greeted with silence or, worse, active avoidance. The other mothers at the local park steer their children away when they see Alice and her children approaching. They whisper behind their hands, their eyes filled with a mixture of judgment and fear. To them, Alice and her children represent something to be feared, something that doesn't fit into the clean and predictable mold of their world. The deeper Alice tries to connect with the town, the more isolated she becomes. Even the shopkeepers, who once exchanged pleasantries with her in the early days of her life in Maplewood, now avoid eye contact and make excuses when she approaches. They claim they are too busy to serve her or that they have run out of stock, even when the shelves are full. Alice has come to dread these interactions, but she continues to press forward, hoping for a change that never seems to come. The underlying cause of this rejection lies in the fear and ignorance that defines the community's attitude toward Alice's family. Her children's disabilities are seen as something unnatural, and their perceived isolation from society is viewed as a moral failing. Maplewood, with its rigid traditions and expectations, cannot accept people who deviate from the norm. The community's response to Alice's family is a reflection of society's broader discomfort with difference. It is easier to reject and isolate than to understand and accept. This constant discrimination leaves Alice feeling small, insignificant, and invisible. She is trapped in a cycle of rejection, unable to escape the confines of a town that views her as less than human. The emotional toll this takes on Alice is immense. She begins to question her own worth, wondering why she continues to fight against a system that is determined to break her down. Despite the outward appearance of resilience, Alice's heart is heavy with grief and frustration. She has tried so hard to prove her family's value, but every door she knocks on remains closed, and every attempt to connect with the community is met with rejection. The isolation Alice faces is not just social, it is psychological. She is made to feel as though her presence is a burden, that her family is a mistake that should not have happened. This is a cruel and painful form of rejection, one that chips away at her dignity and sense of self-worth. In this section, the viewer gets a clear sense of Alice's internal struggle. The town's treatment of her family is a constant reminder of the injustices they face, but Alice is forced to carry this pain in silence, unable to express her anger or frustration. The suffering of the abandoned mother. As the months go by, Alice begins to feel as though there is no one left to turn to. She has poured all her energy into trying to survive, trying to provide for her children, but the exhaustion is starting to take its toll. In her most vulnerable moments, she begins to wonder if there is anyone in this world who would stand by her, someone who would offer a hand of support, who would see her as more than just the cursed widow with 5 children. But every time she reaches out for help, she is met with nothing but cold indifference. The community's rejection is not just limited to social interactions. It extends to every aspect of Alice's life. There are no charity organizations willing to assist her, no neighbors who offer to help her with even the smallest of tasks. Even when Alice's children fall ill, there is no one who offers to help her get them to a doctor or to watch over them while she works. The town seems to have abandoned her completely. Alice's feeling of being left alone in the world intensifies with each passing day. This abandonment goes beyond the physical isolation Alice experiences. It is a deep emotional desert, a sense that she is invisible to the world. The emotional exhaustion that Alice feels is compounded by the constant judgment of others. She can no longer distinguish between the looks of pity and those of disdain. Her heart aches as she realizes that no one in Maplewood is willing to help, No one is willing to offer even a moment of kindness. It is as though her suffering has made her invisible to those around her. This section of the story highlights the emotional paralysis that Alice experiences as a result of the town's indifference. The psychological toll of constant rejection has begun to seep into Alice's spirit. She feels as though she is trapped in a never-ending cycle of despair, with no way out. The emotional numbness she feels is a defense mechanism. She simply cannot allow herself to feel any more pain, because if she does, she might break. But this numbness also means she can no longer fully engage with her children, her love for them becoming tainted by the constant reminder of their social isolation. Alice's loneliness is a reflection of a much larger societal issue, the systemic neglect of those who are seen as other. People like Alice, who live on the margins, are often left to suffer in silence, their struggles invisible to the very community that should be supporting them. This abandonment is a social injustice in itself, as it reflects how society often punishes those who do not conform to its rigid standards. Alice's suffering is not just personal, it is a societal indictment of how we treat the most vulnerable among us. Yet, even in her darkest moments, Alice refuses to give up. Her children, though they cannot speak, offer her the most profound source of strength. They look to her for guidance, for love, and for protection. This unspoken bond between mother and children drives Alice to continue, even when every part of her wants to give up. In the face of abandonment, Alice's love for her children becomes a powerful force, one that she can't abandon, no matter how hard life becomes. This section is a critical moment in Alice's emotional journey. It shows her at her lowest point, emotionally drained, and without any outside support. But it also sets the stage for her eventual transformation. The strength she will gain from this period of suffering will carry her forward and shape the path she will take in the future. Her suffering, though immense, is not the end of her story. It is the crucible through which her true strength will emerge. In Part 5, the story delves deeply into the psychological and emotional toll of social rejection and abandonment. Alice's experiences serve as a commentary on the harmful effects of societal prejudice and how it can lead to the isolation of those who are already vulnerable. This section emphasizes the profound impact of social exclusion on one's mental health and emotional well-being. The feeling of being abandoned by society is one of the cruelest forms of injustice, and it is this rejection that drives Alice to the edge of her endurance. The community's treatment of Alice and her family is not just a personal injustice, it is a broader societal issue. It speaks to how society often punishes individuals who are perceived as different, and how this marginalization can lead to feelings of worthlessness and despair. Alice's experience is a powerful reminder of the importance of compassion and the need to support those who are struggling. Ultimately, this section sets the stage for Alice's transformation. Despite the overwhelming rejection, she will find a way to rise above her circumstances. Her journey is a testament to the power of resilience, and this section highlights just how much strength it takes to endure when the world seems to turn its back on you. Part 6. The Search for Forgiveness. Finding forgiveness within herself. After everything Alice had endured, losing her husband, the daily struggles to support her children, and the constant rejection from her community, she found herself at a crossroads. The weight of anger, bitterness, and resentment had built up over the years, and Alice could feel it consuming her. She had become so focused on surviving and protecting her children that she had lost sight of what it meant to truly heal. She realized that in order to move forward, she needed to forgive not just others, but herself as well. At first, the idea of forgiveness seemed impossible. How could she forgive a world that had treated her and her children so unjustly? How could she forgive the townspeople who had turned their backs on her family when they needed support the most? And perhaps the hardest of all, how could she forgive herself for not being able to protect Emma, her youngest child, from the illness that took her life? Alice had carried this guilt for far too long, and it had weighed heavily on her heart. The constant question of whether she had done enough, whether there was something more she could have done for her family, had been a heavy burden she couldn't seem to shake off. But as the years passed, Alice began to understand that holding on to this anger and self-blame was only hurting her. She was holding herself prisoner to her own pain. She knew that if she didn't find a way to let go, she would never truly heal. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about excusing the hurt that had been done to her. It was about releasing herself from the burden of carrying that pain. It was about finding peace within her own heart so she could move forward and continue being the mother her children needed. The process of forgiving herself was not an easy one. It took time, reflection, and a great deal of emotional work. Alice began by allowing herself to feel the pain, to confront the feelings of guilt and resentment that had been festering inside her. She cried for the pain she had endured and for the loss of her daughter, Emma. She cried for the isolation she had faced in Maplewood, for the rejection that had hurt her deeply. And slowly, through this emotional release, Alice began to forgive herself. She realized that she had done the best she could under the circumstances, and that was enough. She had loved her children fiercely, protected them, and fought for their survival every day. That was all she could do. This self-forgiveness became a crucial turning point for Alice. It allowed her to heal the wounds she had been carrying for so long and gave her the strength to face the world with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, Alice felt a sense of peace within herself. She no longer saw herself as a victim of circumstances, but as a woman who had fought and survived, and who deserved to find happiness and fulfillment. Forgiveness was not a one-time event. It was a process that would continue to evolve, but it was the key to unlocking Alice's inner strength and resilience. Forgiveness gave Alice the clarity she needed to focus on what truly mattered: her family. She was no longer weighed down by the anger and guilt that had once clouded her judgment. She could now be the mother she wanted to be, one who was strong, loving, and capable of showing her children that no matter how difficult life became, they would always have each other. This newfound peace was not just for Alice. It was for her children too, who had seen the toll that her grief had taken on their family. Alice's forgiveness allowed her to fully embrace her role as a mother, without the baggage of past pain holding her back. Accepting society's forgiveness. While Alice had found forgiveness within herself, there was still the matter of how the community of Maplewood saw her and her family. The stigma, the whispers, and the rejection from society had been a constant presence in Alice's life. She had suffered under their judgment for years, and although she had found peace within herself, she still longed for acceptance. The question that loomed in her mind was, could she change how society viewed her family? Could she, in some way, win the forgiveness of the community that had shunned her for so long? At first, Alice didn't know how to begin. She had spent so much time trying to survive that she had never truly thought about how to shift the community's perception of her family. But as Alice's journey of self-forgiveness progressed, she realized that the power to change the narrative lay within her. She couldn't change the past, but she could influence the future. Alice stopped seeing herself as a victim, as someone who was bound by the judgment of others. She began to see herself as a person capable of changing the course of her life, and perhaps even the course of Maplewood's perception of her family. Alice decided to start small by reintroducing herself to the community in a way that would showcase her resilience and her family's strength. She took on leadership roles in the few community events that allowed her to participate, such as organizing charity events and helping with local causes. Slowly but surely, Alice's efforts to connect with others began to pay off. People started to see her not as the cursed widow, but as a strong, capable woman who was willing to give back to the community that had rejected her. Through her actions, Alice demonstrated that she was not defined by her past or the judgments placed upon her. She was more than just the mother of 5 deaf children. She was a woman with dignity, compassion, and the strength to lead. As time went on, some of the townspeople who had once rejected her began to acknowledge her contributions. It wasn't a full acceptance, but it was a start. The more Alice worked to rebuild her family's reputation, the more she realized that acceptance from others could not be her sole source of validation. She had already achieved the most important acceptance, her own. For Alice, society's forgiveness wasn't about receiving an apology from those who had rejected her. It was about showing the community that her family had value, that they deserved respect, and that they could contribute to society in meaningful ways. The more Alice embraced this mindset, the less the town's judgment seemed to matter. She stopped seeking their approval and instead focused on what she could control, her own actions and the well-being of her children. Through this transformation, Alice's relationship with the community slowly began to shift. She no longer saw herself as an outsider, but as a part of something larger, a community that, despite its flaws, could still recognize strength and perseverance when it was shown. The town's view of Alice may not have been completely transformed, but Alice's own perspective on her relationship with the community had changed. She no longer defined herself by their rejection. She defined herself by the love she had for her family and the strength she had shown in the face of adversity. This shift in mindset marked a significant change in Alice's journey. She had stopped looking to society for validation and had instead turned inward, finding strength in her own self-worth. As she embraced forgiveness both from within and from society, she became a more powerful, more self-assured individual. This transformation laid the foundation for Alice to continue fighting for a better future for her family, free from the constraints of societal judgment and rejection. In Part 6, we see Alice's emotional and psychological evolution take center stage. This section is crucial for understanding the power of forgiveness in healing and personal growth. Alice's journey towards self-forgiveness is one of the most important aspects of her character development. It shows that healing isn't just about moving on from the past, but about actively choosing to let go of the emotional burdens that hold us back. The forgiveness Alice finds within herself becomes the key to her survival and allows her to reclaim her power. Moreover, Alice's efforts to gain society's forgiveness reflect the broader theme of redemption and societal change. While society may never fully accept her or her family, Alice's actions demonstrate that change is possible through resilience and the willingness to embrace one's own worth. The process of shifting the community's perception of Alice and her family is a slow and challenging one, but it ultimately leads to a sense of empowerment. Alice's story becomes a testament to the idea that true change begins within, and through that internal transformation, external changes can follow. In this part of the story, Alice becomes a symbol of strength, not because of what she has endured, but because of how she has chosen to respond to the world's rejection. Her journey of forgiveness, both personal and societal, teaches us that the power to change our lives lies not in seeking approval from others, but in finding our own inner strength and embracing our self-worth. Part 7. Rising and Triumphing. Opening the restaurant and the journey of recovery. After years of enduring hardship and social rejection, Alice finally took a significant step toward reclaiming her life and asserting her independence. With the small savings she had managed to accumulate through her arduous work, Alice decided to open a modest restaurant in Maplewood. Her vision for the restaurant wasn't just about earning a living. It was about creating a space for the community, a place where people could come together, share a meal, and engage in meaningful conversations. It was a place where acceptance and understanding could begin to flourish, offering more than just food, but a sense of belonging. The restaurant, which Alice named the Heart of Maplewood, was simple yet warm. She started with a small menu featuring local, traditional dishes that reflected the heart of Maplewood's heritage: hearty stews, freshly baked bread, and homemade pies. Alice, always a gifted cook, poured her love and attention into every dish, ensuring that each plate served was a reflection of her care and passion. For Alice, cooking was not just about preparing food. It was an act of nurturing, a way to show others that she could still give, even after all she had lost. Opening the restaurant marked a monumental shift in Alice's life. It was not just a business venture. It was a way for Alice to prove to herself and to the town that she was more than the widow with 5 deaf children they had once labeled her. She wasn't just surviving. She was living, building something of her own, and creating opportunities for others. She took the risk of opening the restaurant despite the challenges that came with being a single mother in a town that had treated her with so much disdain. But this was Alice's way of fighting back, not with anger, but with love and resilience. In the beginning, business was slow. The townspeople, still grappling with their preconceived notions of Alice and her family, were hesitant to step inside her restaurant. But Alice didn't give up. She continued to serve meals with a smile, talking to each customer who came through the door, making them feel welcome. Her dedication to creating a sense of community began to resonate with those who had initially been wary. Slowly, the word started to spread. Alice's restaurant wasn't just about food, it was about connection. The town began to see the woman who had once been ostracized as someone who was capable of uniting people, not dividing them. In this phase of the story, the restaurant becomes a symbol of Alice's resilience and her determination to turn her life around. It represents a new chapter 1 in which she isn't just reacting to the injustices she has faced, but actively creating something positive in response. The act of opening the restaurant is a reclamation of Alice's agency, and it marks the beginning of her transformation from a figure of pity to one of empowerment. The restaurant also plays a critical role in healing the wounds Alice has experienced, both personally and socially. By creating a space that promotes connection, Alice begins to repair her fractured relationship with the town. It's not an instant change, but through her consistent kindness and dedication, she shows the townspeople that she and her family are more than their disabilities. They are contributors to the community, capable of making a positive impact. Alice's journey of recovery is not just about rebuilding her own life, but about creating a space where others can find healing and connection as well. Rebuilding her life and earning respect. As time passed, Alice's restaurant slowly began to gain popularity. The menu, though simple, reflected the soul of the town, and her commitment to quality and hospitality didn't go unnoticed. Word of mouth spread, and people from Maplewood and even neighboring towns began visiting the restaurant, drawn by the warmth and sense of community that Alice had cultivated. The heart of Maplewood became a gathering place, not just for food, but for meaningful conversations, laughter, and shared experiences. What began as a humble venture soon blossomed into something much more significant. Alice's restaurant became a symbol of her strength, perseverance, and ability to rebuild. As her business grew, so did her reputation. The once judgmental townspeople who had avoided her family began to see Alice in a new light. No longer was she the cursed widow they had once labeled. She was a woman who had risen from the ashes of her past, a mother who had fought for her children and created something beautiful in the process. The community's perception of Alice began to shift as they recognized the strength it took to not only survive, but thrive in the face of adversity. Her restaurant became a place where people from all walks of life could come together, share a meal, and engage in conversation, something that had been sorely lacking in a town that had once been defined by division and prejudice. It wasn't just Alice's food that people came for. It was the warmth, the sense of belonging, and the example of resilience that she provided. In Alice's restaurant, people began to see the power of love, compassion, and the importance of community. As Alice gained recognition for her work, her family's standing in the town began to change as well. Her children, once shunned and labeled as other, now walked the streets with their heads held high. No longer were they seen as a curse. They were a part of the fabric of Maplewood. The acceptance that Alice had so longed for, both from within herself and from the town, was beginning to materialize. It was slow, but it was undeniable. Alice's growth in this phase is not just about earning respect through her business success. It's also about the shift in her own identity. By creating the restaurant and building her reputation, she proves to herself that she is more than the sum of her past struggles. She is a woman of strength, capable of creating positive change, not just for herself, but for her family and her community. The transformation from someone who once felt rejected and marginalized to someone who is now a respected member of her community is a powerful arc in Alice's journey. In this part of the story, the restaurant becomes a physical manifestation of Alice's growth. It is a space of healing, not only for Alice and her family, but also for the town that had once rejected them. Through her actions, Alice demonstrates that the key to regaining respect and acceptance is not to seek validation from others, but to live with integrity, to show up every day with love and resilience, and to prove through one's actions that they are worthy of respect. The process of rebuilding her life is difficult, but Alice's determination never wavers. She faces challenges, both from within and without, but each day that she spends serving others and building her restaurant is a step closer to reclaiming her dignity and her place in the community. In the end, Alice's restaurant is not just a business, it is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the power of love, and the importance of community. It is the foundation upon which Alice and her family rebuild their lives and find the acceptance they so desperately sought. In Part 7, Alice's transformation from a victim of societal rejection to a symbol of strength and empowerment is fully realized. The restaurant represents the culmination of her resilience, turning her vision of creating a space for connection into reality. This section highlights the importance of taking control of one's own narrative and demonstrates how, through hard work, determination, and love, individuals can overcome the obstacles placed before them by society. The restaurant also becomes a platform for Alice to give back to her community, providing a space where others can find acceptance and healing. By creating a positive, inclusive environment, Alice transforms not only her life, but the lives of those around her. The process of rebuilding her life, gaining respect, and changing her community's perception of her family is a powerful commentary on the importance of love, resilience, and the power of community. Alice's journey is a reminder that, even in the face of adversity, it is possible to rise above and create something beautiful from the most difficult circumstances. Part 8. The importance of family. Looking to the future with hope. After years of relentless struggle, Alice and her children have begun to carve out a new life for themselves. The path that led them to this moment has been fraught with pain, loss, and rejection. Yet in the face of adversity, they have emerged stronger. While the scars of the past remain, the resilience of Alice and her children has brought them to a place of newfound strength. They have found a way to move forward, to heal, and to embrace the future with hope. Alice looks at her children and sees not just the faces of her past struggles, but the promise of a better tomorrow. Through all the hardships, they have remained a unit together, bound by love and unbreakable loyalty. Each of them, despite their individual challenges, has found ways to support one another. In the face of the judgment and prejudice that had once plagued them, they have forged their own path, refusing to be defined by the stereotypes that society had tried to impose upon them. The struggles they have endured, losing Robert, facing rejection from their community, and grappling with personal grief have shaped them into a family that no longer looks to the world for validation. Instead, they have learned to rely on each other for strength. Alice, once burdened by guilt and feelings of inadequacy, now finds solace in the simple but profound fact that her family is still standing. They have survived and they have thrived. The power of their bond is evident in every decision Alice makes now. Her determination to create a better life for them is fueled by the love she has for her children and the shared resilience that they embody. Though the past continues to cast its shadow over them, Alice's outlook on the future has shifted. She no longer dwells in the pain of what was lost, but focuses on the possibilities of what lies ahead. The future, once a source of dread, is now full of potential, and Alice is determined to make the most of it. She no longer seeks permission or validation from the world around her. She seeks to build a life that reflects the love and strength of her family. And in this new chapter, Alice realizes that her family is not just the source of her motivation. It is also the key to her healing. The importance of family in this context is undeniable. Throughout all their trials, Alice and her children have clung to each other as their lifeline. Their bond has been their anchor, helping them navigate the tumultuous waters of their lives. This section of the story underscores the idea that family is not just a biological connection, but a source of emotional and psychological strength. Family becomes the foundation upon which Alice builds her new life. The power of love and connection within the family unit is the catalyst that drives Alice to keep moving forward, despite the overwhelming obstacles. Family as the pillar of strength. In this moment of reflection, Alice realizes that her family has been her true source of strength. the unwavering pillar that has kept her going through the darkest of times. It is not just the shared experiences of pain and loss that bind them. It is the love they share, the understanding they have for each other, and the resilience they've built together. Her children, with their quiet yet profound understanding of the world around them, have been her greatest support. Despite their own challenges, they have shown Alice what it means to continue on in the face of adversity. Her children's strength, their ability to adapt and love in a world that has often been unkind to them, has been a constant source of inspiration for Alice. She sees in them the same determination that she feels in herself. They have faced rejection, exclusion, and the absence of their father, yet they continue to move forward, just as Alice does. It is their love for her, and her love for them, that has kept her from succumbing to despair. Their shared bond is a testament to the power of family, how it can provide strength in the face of hardship, and serve as a source of healing when the world seems bleak. Alice also comes to understand that her role as a mother is central to her ability to persevere. For so long, she had struggled with feelings of inadequacy, questioning whether she was enough for her children. But now, as she looks at them, she knows that she is more than enough. She has given them love, guidance, and unwavering support, and in return, they have given her the strength to keep going. Their relationship is a reciprocal one. Alice nurtures and supports them, and in doing so, they nurture and support her. As she watches her children grow and flourish, Alice realizes that they are not just her motivation. They are her greatest source of inspiration. The thought of their bright futures, their potential, is what keeps her moving forward every day. It is not just the desire to provide for them that drives her. It is the deep, unshakable belief that, despite the challenges, they are capable of achieving great things. Her family, her children, have become the focal point of her hope for the future. This realization marks a turning point in Alice's journey. She is no longer simply surviving. She is living with purpose, driven by the love and strength of her family. They are not just the people she cares for. They are the source of her power, her inspiration, and her strength. In a world that had tried to break them, they have found a way to thrive together. Their bond is unbreakable, and through this bond, Alice finds the courage to continue on, no matter the obstacles she may face. Alice's story underscores the universal truth that family is often the most powerful source of strength in our lives. Whether we are facing personal loss, societal rejection, or simply the trials of everyday life, the support of those we love can help us navigate through even the darkest moments. This section of the story highlights the transformative power of family, showing how it can help individuals heal, find hope, and create a brighter future for themselves. Alice's journey is a testament to the idea that no matter how difficult life may be, the love of family can provide the strength needed to rise above. Part 8 brings the story of Alice and her family to a point of reflection and growth. The importance of family is emphasized as the central theme, illustrating how, despite all the obstacles Alice and her children have faced, it is their love for each other that has allowed them to endure and grow. This section also highlights the emotional and psychological strength that can come from family relationships. Alice's realization that her family is her true source of strength is a turning point in her journey, showing that even in the face of adversity, the love of those we hold dear can provide us with the courage to move forward. Alice's story underscores the profound impact that family can have on an individual's ability to overcome challenges. It is through her children that Alice finds her motivation to keep going, and it is through their shared love that they all find healing and strength. This theme of family as a pillar of support resonates universally, reminding the reader that, even in the darkest of times, we are never truly alone as long as we have the love and support of those who care for us. This chapter sets the stage for Alice's continued growth and transformation. She is no longer just surviving. She is thriving because of the strength and resilience she has found within her family. Through this chapter, the reader is reminded of the importance of family in shaping our lives and how, together, we can overcome even the most difficult challenges. Part 9. The Return and Social Acceptance. The return to Maplewood. After many years of living with the pain of being rejected, Alice made a bold decision to return to Maplewood. The thought of returning to the town that had once shunned her and her children brought a mixture of emotions: fear, anger, but most importantly, hope. Alice had grown significantly in the years since her initial exile, and now she felt stronger than ever before. Her decision to go back wasn't motivated by a desire for revenge or to settle old scores. Instead, it was driven by her belief that things could be different. She wanted to show the people of Maplewood that, despite the hardships they had faced, her family had overcome them and emerged stronger. She wanted them to see that the power of resilience, love, and community could change lives and change perceptions. Alice's return to Maplewood was not an easy one. She knew that many people in the town still viewed her family with disdain, seeing them as a symbol of failure rather than one of perseverance. But Alice was no longer the broken woman she had been when she left. The struggles, the pain, the loneliness, it had all forged her into a new version of herself. She was no longer looking for validation or acceptance from others. Her purpose was not to seek approval, but to show Maplewood the strength that her family had cultivated over the years. She had learned that the key to breaking down societal prejudice was not through fighting against it, but by standing tall and demonstrating that love, resilience, and hard work could overcome even the harshest judgments. Alice's return marked a turning point in her journey. She wasn't going back to prove the townspeople wrong or to seek revenge for the way they had treated her. Instead, she was returning to show them what she had learned, that the strength of a family and the power of love could change even the most entrenched biases. Alice's story was no longer about being a victim of circumstance, but about becoming a beacon of hope and inspiration. This shift in mindset was crucial, as it allowed Alice to approach her return with a sense of empowerment rather than bitterness. She was no longer seeking redemption from others; she had already redeemed herself. As Alice made her way back into the town, she felt the weight of her past decisions, but also the weight of her newfound strength. She had nothing to prove to anyone but herself. Her return wasn't about altering the perception of others. It was about showing her family and herself that they had the power to change their future. In doing so, Alice demonstrated that true strength comes not from seeking revenge or retribution, but from accepting oneself and moving forward with purpose. This moment in Alice's journey highlights a powerful message. Change doesn't always require conflict or confrontation. Sometimes, the most profound change happens when individuals refuse to accept the limitations imposed on them by society and instead create their own path. Alice's return to Maplewood symbolizes this profound shift, demonstrating that, with resilience and determination, it's possible to reshape the narrative around one's life. The community's shift after Alice's efforts. Alice's return to Maplewood was met with mixed reactions at first. Some townspeople were still reluctant to accept her and her children, their old biases lingering like a shadow. However, Alice's perseverance, her unyielding commitment to her family, and the strength she had developed over the years began to change the way the town viewed her. Slowly but surely, the community started to see Alice not as a symbol of disgrace, but as a symbol of resilience and hope. It wasn't an overnight change, but the impact Alice had on the town was undeniable. The people who had once dismissed her family as a burden now saw something different. They saw Alice's restaurant thriving, a place where the community came together to enjoy meals and share stories. They saw her children, once ostracized for their disabilities, now active members of the town, contributing in their own ways. And they saw Alice, no longer a victim of circumstances, but a woman who had created a life for herself and her family despite the obstacles in her way. The turning point came when the town began to realize that Alice and her children were not the ones who had needed to change. It was the community's perception of them that had to shift. Over the years, the town had imposed its own rigid standards, expecting everyone to fit into the same mold. But Alice had shown that family, love, and resilience come in many different forms, and the strength of a family doesn't depend on conforming to society's expectations. The more Alice gave to the community through her restaurant, through her kindness, And through her unwavering love for her children, the more the town began to understand the importance of acceptance and inclusivity. Slowly, Maplewood transformed from a place of exclusion to one of unity. It wasn't just Alice who changed. The entire community began to change as they realized the value of diversity and the power of love. In this process, the town learned a vital lesson. People are not defined by the labels others place on them. Alice's story proved that anyone, no matter their background or circumstances, has the ability to overcome adversity and create a positive impact on the world. The town came to realize that their judgment of Alice had been wrong, and in the process, they learned to accept her and her family, flaws and all. This shift in perspective highlights an important social message. Change is possible when people are open to learning and growing. It's not about waiting for society to change on its own. It's about individuals like Alice showing the way and demonstrating that love, resilience, and kindness can break down even the most entrenched biases. The gradual acceptance of Alice and her family by the town is a testament to the idea that social change is often driven by individuals who refuse to be silenced by the prejudice and judgment of others. The story also underscores the importance of community. While Alice's journey was one of personal growth and resilience, her efforts would not have been as impactful without the support of those around her. The transformation of Maplewood is a reminder that, as individuals, we can change the world around us, but it's the collective effort of a community that ultimately leads to lasting change. Alice's story shows that when people come together to embrace diversity and foster inclusion, they create a stronger, more compassionate community for everyone. Alice's triumph is not just in her own personal growth, but in the way she transformed her community. Through her actions, she showed that it is possible to overcome prejudice and change the way people think and feel about others. The acceptance of Alice and her family by Maplewood represents the power of love, resilience, and the willingness to challenge societal norms. Part 9 marks the final phase of Alice's journey, focusing on her return to Maplewood and the gradual acceptance of her family by the community. This section emphasizes that personal transformation can have a profound impact on the larger community. Alice's decision to return is not motivated by a desire for revenge, but by a hope that her actions can change the town's perception of her family. It highlights the power of resilience and love in changing deeply ingrained societal biases. This section also reflects the broader theme of social change, illustrating how individuals can inspire and create lasting change in their communities. Alice's efforts show that, while social norms and prejudices may seem insurmountable, they can be overcome through persistent acts of kindness, courage, and love. Alice's return and the town's eventual acceptance of her family highlight the potential for transformation within both individuals and society as a whole. Part 10. The Message and Conclusion. The Lesson of Resilience and Forgiveness. Alice's journey has been one of incredible hardship, but it is also a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her story is not just about overcoming adversity. It is about learning to forgive and finding peace in the face of pain. Throughout her trials, Alice discovered that true resilience does not only lie in the ability to fight against the challenges life throws at us, but also in the capacity to forgive those who have wronged us. It is this dual strength, resilience, and forgiveness that has allowed Alice to rebuild her life and transform her family's future. The early years of Alice's life after her husband's death were marked by a deep sense of loss, anger, and a profound feeling of betrayal. She had every reason to hold on to resentment, the unfair judgment she and her children had faced, the hardships of widowhood, and the pain of losing her youngest daughter, Emma. But Alice's journey was also a journey of healing, and in order to heal, she had to confront the emotions that threatened to consume her. She learned that, while anger may provide a sense of temporary justice, it ultimately eats away at the soul. Holding on to hatred, Alice realized, would not bring her peace. Forgiveness would. Forgiving the people who had ostracized her and her children, and even forgiving herself for what she perceived as her failures as a mother, was not an easy task. It was a long, painful process, but it was essential for Alice's growth. Through forgiveness, Alice was able to let go of the past and make space for a brighter future. Her decision to forgive was not an act of weakness. It was a demonstration of her inner strength. It was a courageous choice to free herself from the chains of bitterness and move forward with her life. Resilience, in Alice's case, is not just about surviving. It is about thriving despite the odds. It is about learning from the pain and using it as a catalyst for change. Alice's ability to forgive those who had hurt her, and even more importantly, to forgive herself, allowed her to heal emotionally and spiritually. This lesson of forgiveness is a powerful one, and it resonates far beyond Alice's personal story. It teaches us that true strength lies in our ability to move forward, to release the hold that resentment has on us, and to embrace the healing power of forgiveness. In this chapter of Alice's life, the lesson is clear. Forgiveness is not about excusing wrongs or forgetting the pain. It is about freeing ourselves from the emotional weight that binds us. Resilience is not about continuing to fight against the world, but about finding peace and strength within ourselves. Alice's story teaches us that resilience, paired with forgiveness, is a powerful force that can lead us to personal transformation and healing. A hopeful ending. Alice's story is not just one of overcoming obstacles, it is a story of hope, redemption, and the transformative power of love. Throughout her journey, Alice faced challenges that many would have considered insurmountable. The death of her husband, the rejection of her family by society, the devastating loss of her daughter, and the constant struggle to provide for her children. Yet, through all these trials, Alice never gave up. She kept moving forward, even when the road seemed too difficult to travel. The story of Alice shows us that, no matter how difficult life becomes, there is always hope for a brighter future. While Alice's past was filled with hardship, it was her unwavering hope for a better tomorrow that ultimately allowed her to rebuild her life. She didn't let the struggles of her past define her future. Instead, she used them as stepping stones, learning valuable lessons along the way that helped her grow stronger and more determined. One of the most powerful aspects of Alice's story is her ability to turn adversity into opportunity. When society rejected her and her children, Alice did not succumb to despair. Instead, she found a way to create a new life for her family. By opening a small restaurant, Alice not only provided for her children, but also created a space where the community could come together, fostering healing and connection. This act of courage and creativity transformed her family's future, and the town of Maplewood began to see Alice not as a symbol of failure, but as a symbol of resilience and hope. The conclusion of Alice's story is one of triumph. She has not only rebuilt her own life, but has also transformed the lives of her children and the community around her. Through her determination and resilience, Alice has created a future filled with possibilities for herself and her family. The town that once shunned her now embraces her as a leader and a symbol of strength. Alice's journey proves that no matter how difficult life may be, there is always a way forward if we remain hopeful, resilient, and open to change. The final message of Alice's story is clear. Never give up, no matter how difficult the circumstances. Life will always present challenges, but it is our ability to face those challenges with resilience, to forgive those who have wronged us, and to embrace the love and strength of our families that allows us to rise above them. Alice's story teaches us that the key to overcoming life's obstacles is not found in our circumstances, but in our ability to change the way we perceive them. By choosing hope, resilience, and forgiveness, we can transform even the darkest of situations into opportunities for growth and success. As Alice's journey comes to a close, we are reminded that life is not about avoiding hardship, but about learning to rise above it. The road to a brighter future may be long and difficult, but with hope, love, and resilience, anything is possible. Alice's story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of love and forgiveness. It is a story that inspires us all to keep moving forward, no matter what obstacles we may face, and to believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Part 10 encapsulates the central message of Alice's journey: the power of resilience and forgiveness in overcoming life's most difficult challenges. This section highlights the importance of not only surviving adversity, but using it as an opportunity for growth and transformation. Alice's decision to forgive those who hurt her and her family is a pivotal moment in her story, as it allows her to heal and reclaim her power. This lesson in forgiveness serves as a powerful reminder that holding on to anger and resentment only holds us back, while forgiveness frees us to move forward and create a better future. The hopeful ending of Alice's story reinforces the idea that, no matter how difficult our circumstances may seem, there is always a path forward. Through resilience, creativity, and hope, Alice was able to transform her life and the lives of her children. Her story teaches us that no challenge is insurmountable if we have the courage to face it head-on and the resilience to keep going, no matter what. The message of this section is one of hope, empowerment, and the belief that with the right mindset, we can overcome even the most difficult obstacles and create a brighter future for ourselves and our loved ones. Thank you for watching this incredible story of strength and perseverance. We hope Alice's journey inspires you to never give up, no matter the odds. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to Stories TH for more stories that will touch your heart.